Alex had always loved his backyard pool. It wasn't just a feature on his property. It was his sanctuary. After long days at work, he'd slip into the cool water, letting the stress melt away beneath the clear blue sky. The gentle hum of the nearby trees and the soft splash of water had become his daily calm. So, when the thick envelope arrived on a bright Tuesday afternoon, sealed with an official HOA stamp, Alex's first reaction was confusion. He lived just outside the gated community, far enough that he never considered joining the homeowners association that managed the streets and parks just down the road. His purchase, done years ago, was intentionally outside HOA boundaries. No monthly fees, no strict rules, no fuss, or so he thought. The letter was formal, terse, and demanded immediate action. You are hereby ordered to remove your backyard pool within 30 days due to violation of the neighborhood's community standards, as enforced by the Board of Directors of the Evergreen Estates, HOA. Alex blinked. He reread it, hoping the words would change, that maybe he was missing something. But no, the demand was clear. Remove the pool, no negotiation, no exceptions. His pulse quickened. How could this be? He wasn't a member. He never signed anything. Why would the HOA think they had any authority over his property? He reached for his phone to call the HOA office, listed on the letter, but before he could dial, a pang of doubt struck him. Could this be a prank? A scam? He searched online. Scams targeting homeowners sometimes look official, but the letter matched the HOA's real logo. The contact number was legitimate, and their website mentioned recent strengthening of enforcement policies. Alex's mind raced. Maybe something had changed legally. Had the HOA expanded their jurisdiction? Was there a new law he didn't know about? That evening, he walked around his property, inspecting the pool from every angle. The water glistened. Invitingly, the tiles gleamed under the setting sun. To Alex, this was just his backyard oasis. A place of peace and privacy. The idea that he might have to tear it out was unthinkable. But what troubled him more was the ominous tone of the letter. It wasn't a friendly notice. It was a demand backed by consequences. Fines. Legal action. The phrase, community standards, felt like a vague weapon, ready to be wielded against anyone who stood in their way. That night, sleep was elusive. Alex lay awake, mind buzzing with questions. How did the HOA find out about his pool? He never talked to neighbors much, kept to himself. Was someone watching? Who would want this enforced? And why now? His thoughts drifted to the neighbors. The homes near his property belonged to the HOA community. Were they behind this? Had someone reported him out of spite or fear? A chill ran down his spine. As dawn broke, Alex made a decision. He would not remove his pool without a fight. But first, he needed to understand what he was up against. He began by researching property records online. Hours passed as he sifted through old deeds, community agreements, and legal jargon. Then, he spotted it. A barely visible line in the paperwork that hinted at an obscure clause linking his land to the HOA's governance. The words were vague, almost hidden. Certain covenants and restrictions shall apply to properties adjacent to Evergreen Estates. Could this be the key? Had the HOA quietly extended its reach to properties like his? Alex knew one thing for sure. This was no ordinary dispute over pool safety or noise complaints. Something bigger was happening, and he was caught right in the middle of it. The clock was ticking. 30 days to remove the pool. 30 days to unravel the mystery. And somewhere behind the polished veneer of the HOA board, someone was watching. Waiting, Alex clenched his fists, staring out at the pool shimmering in the morning light. This was his home. He wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, Alex woke early with a restless urgency. The mystery of the HOA's sudden claim over his pool gnawed at him. The letter had been clear, but the legal foundation behind it felt shaky. If there was a secret clause granting the HOA authority over his property, he had to find it. And fast. He brewed a strong cup of coffee and sat at his cluttered kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of papers he'd pulled from the county records office. The weighty binders, dusty and yellowed, contained years of deeds, covenants, and amendments. This wasn't a casual read. It was a treasure hunt through legal minefields. As he thumbed through pages of fine print, his frustration grew. The language was deliberately complex, twisting common words into ambiguous phrases. Most homeowners probably never read beyond the basics, but now every word mattered. Then, halfway through an obscure addendum dated nearly 20 years ago, something caught his eye. A single paragraph, tucked between routine maintenance rules and landscaping guidelines, almost buried beneath a flood of boilerplate text. The Evergreen Estates Homeowners Association reserves the right to enforce covenants, conditions, and restrictions on properties contiguous to the association's defined boundaries, where deemed necessary to preserve the aesthetic and structural integrity of the community. Alex's heart pounded. Could this be the loophole the HOA was exploiting? His property technically bordered Evergreen Estates, even though he never agreed to join. The HOA's claim wasn't based on membership, but on this vague, sweeping clause. He leaned back, mind racing. Contiguous properties, the paragraph said. His home was adjacent, but not inside the neighborhood. The wording left so much room for interpretation. The HOA could argue almost anything fell under their preservation mission. But why hadn't this been enforced before? Why now? His search intensified. He pulled up property maps online and compared them with HOA boundaries. Sure enough, his backyard touched the edge of the HOA-managed land by just a few feet. It seemed minor, insignificant even, but apparently enough for the HOA to stretch their authority. A sudden knock on the front door startled him. Alex peeked through the curtains. It was Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman from 2 houses down inside the HOA neighborhood. She smiled politely, but with a hint of unease. "Morning, Alex," she said softly. "I heard about the letter. Terrible business, isn't it?" Alex hesitated, then invited her inside. Over coffee, Mrs. Henderson's demeanor shifted from friendly neighbor to cautious informant. "They've been tightening the rules lately," she explained in a hushed tone. "New board members came in last year. Very strict. They want uniformity, no exceptions. You know, the pool doesn't fit their perfect neighborhood image." Alex frowned. "But why target me? I'm not even part of the HOA," she sighed. "That clause you found, it's been there forever, but enforcement is new, more aggressive. They're using it to pressure anyone who doesn't comply, member or not. They believe it'll keep property values high and stop undesirable changes." Alex's mind reeled. This wasn't just about a pool. It was about control. About who could decide how a neighborhood looked and who belonged. Mrs. Henderson's voice dropped to a whisper. "Some people here think the HOA's going too far, but no one dares speak out much. They're afraid of the fines, the legal battles. The board has deep pockets." Alex nodded, feeling a mixture of dread and determination. The stakes were higher than he'd imagined. This wasn't a simple dispute. It was a power play, masked by legal jargon. Before Mrs. Henderson left, she offered one last warning. "Be careful, Alex. They watch closely. Don't give them any reason to come after you harder." As the door closed behind her, Alex stared at the pool outside, its calm surface hiding the storm brewing beneath. The HOA's reach was long, and their intent clear, but so was his resolve. If the HOA wanted a fight, they'd get one. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the HOA was watching him. The more he thought about it, the more he realized the letter wasn't just a bureaucratic formality. It was a warning that if he didn't comply, consequences would follow. Determined to get answers, Alex dialed the HOA office number printed on the letter the very next morning. After a few rings, a crisp voice answered. Evergreen Estates HOA. This is Melissa. How may I help you? Alex took a deep breath. Hi, this is Alex Martin. I received a letter demanding I remove my pool, but I'm not a member of your HOA. I'd like to understand why you're enforcing this on my property. There was a pause. Then Melissa's tone shifted. Colder, clipped. Mr. Martin, the Evergreen Estates HOA has a responsibility to enforce community standards within and around the neighborhood. Your property falls within the area governed by our covenants. Alex frowned. I've reviewed my deed and boundaries. I'm not part of the HOA. I never agreed to your rules. Melissa's voice dropped even lower. These matters are not up for negotiation. The board has reviewed your case extensively. Compliance is expected. The conversation was tense, but Alex pressed on. If I'm not a member, what gives you the right to tell me what to do with my property? Who authorized this? Melissa sighed audibly, as if exasperated. Mr. Martin, this isn't personal. It's about maintaining the integrity of Evergreen Estates. We've had numerous complaints, and the board is acting to preserve property values and neighborhood aesthetics. You should consider joining the HOA. It would simplify these matters. Alex felt a flicker of anger. I'm not interested in joining. I bought this property to avoid HOA rules. There was a brief silence. Then Melissa's voice hardened. Then you leave us no choice. If the pool isn't removed within the time frame, fines will begin accruing, and legal action will follow. The board takes these violations seriously. The threat hung heavy in the air. Alex swallowed hard. Are you saying you'll sue me over my pool? Not if you comply, Melissa replied smoothly. But yes, if necessary. Before he could respond, the line went dead. Alex sat back, his heart pounding. The HOA wasn't bluffing. This was no casual warning. It was an explicit threat that afternoon. As he walked around the pool, Alex spotted something unusual on the fence line. A small camera pointed directly at his backyard. He hadn't noticed it before. His eyes darted to the neighboring property. Was someone spying on him? He pulled out his phone to snap a picture, but a movement caught his eye. Across the street, a man stood leaning casually against a car, watching him. The man's face was obscured by sunglasses, but the intent gaze was unmistakable. Fear mingled with frustration. How far would the HOA go to enforce their will? Was this intimidation? Later that night, Alex's phone buzzed with an anonymous text. Stop resisting or else. We're watching. The message sent a chill through him. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was personal. He showed the text to Mrs. Henderson the next day, hoping for reassurance. Instead, her face darkened. This isn't the first time, she said quietly. Some folks on the board use fear to keep people in line. You're stirring the hornet's nest now. Alex clenched his fists. He hadn't expected this fight to be easy, but the aggression caught him off guard. It was clear the HOA wasn't just about rules. They were about control, and they would use whatever means necessary. That night, as he stared at the ceiling, the sound of his pool's gentle bubbling mocked him. What started as a quiet sanctuary was now a battleground. Alex knew the road ahead would be rough, but retreat was not an option. Whatever the HOA threw at him, he was ready to stand his ground, even if it meant facing the unknown threats lurking just beyond his fence. In the days that followed the threatening text, Alex's sense of unease grew heavier. His once peaceful neighborhood felt different, tense, as if everyone was watching, whispering, waiting. The warmth he'd felt from some neighbors shifted to cold stares and silent avoidance. He noticed how friendly greetings turned into quick glances and hurried walks in the other direction. It was subtle at first. A neighbor closing their blinds as he passed, hushed conversations, halting abruptly whenever he neared. But Alex knew it wasn't just coincidence. One afternoon, he spotted Mark, a man from the HOA community, standing near the curb with a group of other homeowners. Their eyes flicked toward Alex, sharp and wary. When Mark caught Alex's gaze, his smile was thin and strained. He said nothing but nodded once. Almost like a warning, Alex felt the weight of isolation settling in. He wasn't a member of the HOA, but somehow the community was closing ranks. He wondered if the HOA board was using social pressure to break his resolve. The following morning, Alex decided to confront the silence. He knocked on the door of Jenna, a neighbor who had always been warm and welcoming. She opened it cautiously, her smile guarded. "Hi, Jenna. I wanted to talk about everything that's going on," Alex began. She sighed and motioned for him to come inside. Once seated, her expression shifted from cautious to conflicted. "I'm sorry, Alex," she said quietly. "I wish I could help, but the HOA makes it clear that anyone who opposes them won't be tolerated. A few of us tried speaking up last year, but things got ugly." "What happened?" Alex asked. Jenna hesitated. One family faced huge fines for a simple landscaping change. They refused to pay. The board took them to court, and it destroyed them financially. People here are scared. It's not just about rules. It's about power. Alex swallowed hard. "Do you think they're behind the threats I've been getting?" Jenna's eyes darted to the window, then back. "I don't know for sure, but there are whispers about some board members having friends who handle unpleasant tasks, intimidation, surveillance. It's not official, but it's real." Alex clenched his fists. He had hoped for allies, but the walls around him seemed to grow thicker. Later that evening, as Alex walked through his yard, he noticed something strange. His garden gate, which he always kept locked, was slightly ajar. Panic surged through him. Had someone been on his property? Was this more than just passive hostility? He searched the yard thoroughly, but found no sign of damage or theft. Still, the invasion was clear. A silent message that he wasn't safe. Alex installed security cameras overnight, determined to protect what was his. But the cameras were a double-edged sword. While they offered a sense of safety, they also reminded him how deeply the conflict had sunk into his life. In the following days, a few neighbors began whispering openly. Some criticized him for not playing by the rules. Others whispered about troublemakers who disrupt the peace. Alex heard rumors that the HOA might pursue not only his pool, but also other features of his property. The most unsettling moment came when a local handyman, who often worked in the area, approached Alex cautiously. "You don't want to poke the hornet's nest with those HOA folks," he warned. "They've got connections, and they don't mind using them. Last month, a guy down the street got hit with a bunch of fines, and he just packed up and left." Alex nodded, feeling the crushing weight of the neighborhood's unspoken rules. The HOA wasn't just a governing body. It was a silent force, shaping the lives of everyone around him, whether they liked it or not. But despite the growing isolation, Alex's resolve hardened. He wasn't about to give in without a fight. The pool was more than just water and tiles. It was his freedom, his choice, his home. And the HOA would learn that sometimes, standing alone can spark a revolution. The uneasy calm that had settled over Alex's life shattered one restless night. He was woken by a faint rustling outside his bedroom window. Heart pounding, he rose cautiously and peered into the darkness. The familiar outline of his backyard came into view, but something felt off. The pool lights, which he always turned off before bed, were faintly glowing. Curiosity warred with fear as Alex slipped into his slippers and crept toward the window. There, taped to the wooden fence near the pool, was a crudely handwritten note, fluttering gently in the night breeze. He grabbed a flashlight and hurried outside, the cold air prickling his skin. The note read, "Stop resisting, or else, no." Signature. No explanation, just a chilling warning. Alex's stomach tightened. This was more than a bureaucratic battle. It had turned personal and menacing. Someone wanted him to know he was being watched, and that consequences awaited if he didn't back down. The following morning, Alex showed the note to Mrs. Henderson, who had become an unexpected confidant. Her eyes widened with recognition. "This isn't the first time someone has received messages like this," she said gravely. "The board has its ways of dealing with dissent, intimidation, threats, even vandalism. It's under the radar, but it happens." Alex's hands trembled. He never imagined his fight would bring such darkness to his doorstep. But what scared him more was the realization that his neighbors, people he passed by every day, might be complicit. Determined not to be cowed, Alex installed more security measures, motion sensor lights, surveillance cameras, and even a sturdy lock on the fence gate that had been left open before. He wanted proof if things escalated. Days passed with no new incidents, but the tension never lifted. Alex felt eyes on him everywhere, from cars parked too long near his house to figures lurking just out of sight. One afternoon, as he reviewed footage from his new cameras, a shadowy figure appeared near the fence. The person lingered, then retreated when the lights triggered. The image was grainy, but Alex could make out a baseball cap and a bulky jacket. His pulse quickened. Someone was spying on him, confirming the threat wasn't empty. Alex debated reporting the harassment to the police, but Mrs. Henderson cautioned him. "They're careful, Alex. Nothing they do is blatant enough to cross legal lines. It's all psychological warfare." As the week wore on, the community's chill grew colder. At a local cafe, a barista recognized him and whispered, "People talk. You're stirring things up. Be careful." Alex knew she was right. The HOA's grip was tightening, using fear and isolation to break his spirit. Yet even as the threats mounted, a flicker of something unexpected stirred inside him. Defiance. If the HOA wanted a fight, they would have one. He wasn't just fighting for his pool anymore. He was fighting for his right to live without fear, to own his home on his terms. And he was ready to take the battle beyond whispered threats and shadowy figures. Alex sat at his kitchen table, eyes fixed on the glowing screen of his laptop. He had spent hours drafting emails, researching laws, and composing letters to the HOA board. Each message was met with silence, or polite but cold replies, reiterating their demands. The fight felt like an uphill battle, and the loneliness weighed heavily on him. Just as he was about to close his laptop, his phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed on the screen. "Hello." Alex answered cautiously. "Alex, this is David Harper." The voice said quietly, but urgently, "I'm on the Evergreen Estates HOA board." Alex froze. A board member? He had never received any direct communication from the board itself, only from the HOA office staff. "I want to talk," David continued, "not as a board member, but as someone who disagrees with what's happening." Alex's curiosity piqued. "Why are you reaching out to me?" There was a pause. Then David said, "Because not all of us support the heavy-handed tactics. I know what you're going through. It's personal, and it's wrong." Alex glanced at the window, half expecting a shadow to appear. "Why should I trust you? How do I know this isn't some trick?" David sighed. "I can't blame you for being skeptical, but I'm willing to meet in person, somewhere neutral, to discuss things. No threats, no strings attached." Alex hesitated. The thought of meeting someone from the board made him uneasy, but this might be the first genuine chance to learn what was really going on behind the scenes. "All right," Alex said finally. "Where?" "Cafe Rose, tomorrow at noon. I'll be wearing a blue jacket. Just come alone," David replied before hanging up. The next day, Alex arrived at the cafe. Nerves tingling, he scanned the room and spotted a man sitting quietly in the corner, a blue jacket draped over the chair. The man looked older than Alex expected, with kind eyes and a weary expression. David introduced himself and got straight to the point. "The board isn't a monolith," he said. "Some members want to push hard on rules and enforcement, but others worry about the damage it's doing to people like you and to the community's reputation." Alex leaned forward. "So why are you helping me? Aren't you supposed to be on their side?" David shook his head. "I joined the board to protect our neighborhood, not to bully neighbors. When I heard about your case, I looked into it. The clause they're using to justify their actions. It's vague, yes, and arguably overreaching, but the board won't admit that publicly," Alex said. "They're too invested." David nodded grimly. "Exactly. Some of them are more concerned with appearances than fairness, and they see you as a threat." Alex felt a surge of gratitude, mixed with cautious hope. "Can you help me? Legally or by speaking out?" David hesitated. "I'm limited in what I can do officially, but I can offer advice on how to challenge the HOA's authority, gather evidence, and build a defense. Also, I know a lawyer familiar with HOA disputes who might take your case." Alex's mind raced. This was the break he needed. "But be careful," David warned. "If the other board members find out I'm talking to you, there could be repercussions." "For me," Alex nodded. "I appreciate your help, but I can't back down now. This fight is bigger than just a pool." David smiled faintly. "Good, because sometimes change starts with one person willing to stand up." As Alex left the cafe, a new sense of determination filled him. The path ahead was uncertain, but now he wasn't entirely alone. The HOA had its secrets, but so did he, and allies he never expected. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, Alex felt he had a chance. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over Alex's backyard, as he sat reviewing documents David had helped him gather. Emails, photos, meeting minutes, little pieces of a puzzle that might finally expose the HOA's overreach. For the first time, he felt a spark of hope amid the tension and fear. David's advice had proven invaluable. He'd connected Alex with an attorney who specialized in HOA disputes, and together they were building a case. The attorney was particularly interested in a set of internal emails Alex had acquired through a public records request. Emails that suggested some board members had deliberately targeted Alex's property to set an example. Alex couldn't believe it. Behind the polished letters and legal jargon was a cold strategy to intimidate dissenters and maintain control by fear. Just as Alex was about to print out the emails, his phone buzzed. It was a message from David. Meet me at the community park. Urgent. Curious and cautious, Alex grabbed his jacket and headed out. At the park, David was waiting near a bench, looking more anxious than before. Alex, you need to see this, David said, pulling out a USB drive from his pocket. It's a dump of files from a former board member who recently resigned. She sent them anonymously to me, fearing retaliation. These files could expose a lot, not just about your case, but about other shady dealings in the HOA. Alex's heart raced as he took the USB. The weight of the moment was heavy. What kind of dealings? He asked. David's voice dropped. Financial mismanagement, unauthorized surveillance, and evidence that some board members encouraged harassment of homeowners who didn't comply with the rules. Alex's mind reeled. This was bigger than a single pool dispute. The HOA was rotten to the core. I have to be careful with this, David warned. If the board finds out I have these files, they'll come after me. Alex nodded solemnly. We need to get this to my lawyer immediately. That night, Alex handed over the USB to his attorney. Over the next few days, they combed through the files, emails, financial reports, video footage from surveillance cameras placed around properties without consent. The lawyer was stunned. This is a goldmine. It's evidence of serious misconduct and intimidation. If used correctly, it could dismantle the HOA's case against you and expose their abuses. But with the evidence came risk. As Alex stepped outside his house later that evening, he noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Its windows darkened. The engine idled softly. The same feeling of being watched returned with full force. Suddenly, the vehicle sped off as he approached. Alex's pulse thumped in his ears. The battle had just escalated. Yet instead of retreating, Alex felt something fierce ignite inside him. A determination to see this through, no matter what. In the following days, Alex's lawyer prepared to file a formal complaint against the HOA, leveraging the new evidence. The news leaked quietly among neighbors, and murmurs of discontent began spreading inside the community. Some homeowners approached Alex, emboldened to share their own stories of HOA harassment. The silence was breaking, and in the shadows, the HOA board knew a storm was coming. Alex looked out over his pool. Its calm surface, now a symbol not of leisure, but of resistance. The final act was drawing near. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension as Alex sat beside his lawyer, eyes scanning the packed room. Today was the day the HOA's reign over his backyard and his life would face its reckoning. Months of legal battles, threats, and isolation had led to this moment. The evidence from the USB drive was damning. Secret emails, surveillance footage, and financial misdeeds. It painted a picture of an HOA driven not by community spirit, but by control and fear. As the lawyer presented the case, the room grew heavier. Board members sat stiffly, avoiding eye contact. Their carefully curated image was cracking. But the true shock came when the former HOA president took the stand. She was expected to defend the board's actions. Yet her testimony sent ripples through the courtroom. I want to confess, she began, voice trembling. I was the one who leaked the files. I couldn't stand what was happening. The intimidation, the spying, the threats against residents like Alex. I believed the community deserved the truth. Gasps echoed from the audience. Alex's lawyer seized the moment, pressing the former president on the board's abuses. Her detailed account confirmed the systematic campaign against dissenters, including Alex's case. Just when it seemed the HOA's fate was sealed, the judge paused, then asked a surprising question. Mr. Martin, are you sure you are not a member of this HOA? Alex blinked in confusion. He had spent months fighting what he believed was an external imposition on his property, but the court revealed a hidden twist. His deed included a clause binding his property to the HOA by a technicality he had overlooked. Alex's world spun. He wasn't an outsider. The HOA's authority over his pool was legitimate, legally speaking. Yet his fight wasn't in vain. The judge, taking into account the board's misconduct and the intimidation tactics, ruled that while the HOA had the right to enforce the rules, their methods were unlawful and abusive. The board was ordered to cease harassment immediately and to review all enforcement policies with community input. Alex sighed in relief. But more importantly, he'd changed the narrative. His stand had sparked a community reckoning. Neighbors began organizing, demanding transparency and fairness. As the court session ended, David approached Alex, a relieved smile on his face. "You did it," he said quietly. Alex nodded, looking at his pool, the pool that had become the unlikely battleground for justice and freedom. His fight had started over a backyard pool, but it ended with something much bigger. A community awakened, a board held accountable, and a homeowner who refused to be silenced. Sometimes, the biggest battles come from the smallest acts of defiance.